Please get ready for a dictation of transcription number 98 from Sir Kailash Chandra magazine. 5 seconds. Start. Sir, as is well known, in 1982, when we passed the Delimitation Commission Act, the constituencies were formed on the basis of the census figures arrived at the last census in 1981. The census authorities at this time worked in a manner which was slightly different from the way in which the work was carried out in 1971. At the time of the census of 1971, as we are aware, all castes and subcastes were mentioned in the census figures. But at the time of the census of 1981, naturally, in view of the change in our policy, what they did was that they did not enumerate all the castes, but only enumerated such castes as were ordered to be enumerated, generally as had to be given some special representation under the orders issued by the President under Article 341. As we are aware, Article 341 provides that in the present circumstances, the President shall determine the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes to whom, for a period of 10 years, special representation has been given. And under Article 341(2), if at all there is to be any change in the list, then it is only Parliament that can make that change. At the present moment, the position is that at the time of the census of 1981, there was an order giving the lists of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes for whom special representation was to be given. Therefore, at the time of the census of 1981, they tried to collect information only about those cases which were mentioned in that order for the purpose that they may be given the special representation on that basis. But it appears at the present moment, at the time of the actual taking of the census information, certain people mentioned their castes a little incorrectly. For instance, if a person belonged to some subcaste at the time of mentioning it to the enumerator, he gave it as Harijan. Now, Harijan is neither a caste nor is it recognized. So probably at the time of the census of 1981, such people were omitted, though they really belonged to the castes enumerated in the order. Similarly, there were certain synonyms of castes, and in that case also people of the same caste for whom the protection was intended on account of their giving the wrong description to the enumerator in respect of the name to which they did not exactly belong, they were also excluded. Therefore, in the 1951 census register, which was prepared on the basis of the information thus supplied, certain castes were omitted. After the passing of the bill, as we are aware, under Article 81 of the Constitution, the membership has to bear a certain proportion to the figures of population of the last census. It was, however, found as, for instance, in the case of Andhra Pradesh, though there is a general increase in the population as a whole, there was a decrease in the population of the scheduled castes and the scheduled tribes. This was so glaring that it was brought to the notice of the authorities concerned, and the census authorities there, from whatever information they had, corrected these figures, because in respect of these, they had certain slips or certain other papers giving the information from which they could get the correct figures. That could be corrected because the final delimitation orders were not passed at that time. So, in respect of Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat, where the final order was not passed, the census authorities corrected these figures, and the delimitation commission took that into account and they did their work. But it was found in respect of certain other states also that such corrections were made. But the delimitation orders were not passed. Therefore, we first intended to bring forward or introduce a bill in the Lok Sabha only in respect of those states where the delimitation commission had not passed its final orders, with the provision that the census authorities were to make a change in respect of the figures of population of the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Then they could, in their final orders, take these figures into consideration and delimit the constituencies on that basis. However, when the bill was introduced, it was brought to the notice of the government that in many of the states, final orders had been actually passed by the delimitation authorities, and it was therefore necessary, in order that there should be uniformity in the principles followed in respect of this matter, that there should be some provision brought in spite of the fact that final orders are passed by the delimitation commission, that could be reopened, but only for this limited purpose, wherever the census authorities had to correct these figures and place it on a proper basis. The delimitation authority should, in that case, reopen that matter and determine the matter on the basis provided by the census authorities. Therefore, the scope of the bill to that extent was widened. The bill which is now before the House is in this form. So far as the delimitation of constituencies is concerned, whether it is Andhra Pradesh or Gujarat, or whether in respect of other states, the delimitation commission will be authorized to reopen these matters if the census authorities had to change the figures of population. Therefore, the bill before the House is a very simple one to that extent. It only enables the delimitation commission to take into account the corrections which may be made by the census authorities. It is primarily the census authorities who are to do it now. Stop.